The area surrounding Chuckanut Mountain is a prized natural and cultural resource for people in western Washington state. Located in both Whatcom and Skagit counties, the mountain range sweeps down to meet rich waters of the Puget Sound and provides miles of mountain trails, beaches, viewpoints, and timber. But due to rising temperatures, fire suppression, and increased development, the communities adjacent to these lands are under serious threat from wildfires.
The fire that occurred up at the Chuckanut Mountain, the Burnout Road fire, we actually responded August 1st was when it actually officially got reported. But as it turns out, the fire was probably burning a couple of days before. And it was mixed in with a lot of the smoke that was in the area. And so a lot of people didn't recognize it as being anything different. The fire actually got reported initially by some people in Skagit County and actually out on the water in the San Juan Islands, where they could actually see it looked like there was a different color smoke and more intense smoke up on the Chuckanut Mountain.
He could see smoke coming up, and all he could really tell us was that it's at the top of the ridge line above Larrabee State Park, and it looks like it's coming out of a clear cut. My name's David Way. I work with the Department of Natural Resources in the wildfire operations portion of our agency. And I was the first responder on scene on this fire back in August. It started on August 4th of 2017. And where we're sitting here, it's private forest land. That's, you can tell it's got young trees on it, that it was logged probably within the last 10 years or so. When I arrived at the fire, it was about 5 o'clock in the evening, and the fire was probably about 3 to 5 acres in size, but it was pretty smoky and hard to see the extent of what was already burning. The winds were blowing a steady 15 to 20 miles out of the northwest, and so it was spreading the fire directly across this ridge line to the south towards the Chuckanut community. And so it was quite concerning seeing the rate of spread and knowing how close we were to the community adjacent to us here. Mm-hmm. When the wind finally died down that night at about 1 in the morning, the smoke lifted up enough, we were able to get an idea for the extent of how much had burned. And ultimately, the fire was 48 acres in size and less than an eighth of a mile from the nearest home. In my 16 years of fire experience in this area, we've had numerous fires in the Chuckanut Range, but luckily they've all stayed probably around an acre or two in size and not much bigger. So I think this is a larger than normal incident we have here, but probably it's more what we're going to continue to see in future seasons.
There are measures individuals and communities can take to help protect their lives and property. These actions can drastically reduce the danger they face from wildfires.
I would say that a lot of folks think that it may be an east side problem. We haven't seen a big wildfire. We've had some wildfires, and I make that a point of some of my educational outreach to point out the fires that we've had on the west side. They've been generally small and have been controlled, but some have burned for a few days and out of control. Fires are a natural part of the forests on the west side of the Cascades, and it's inevitable that, as we say in our little brochure here, it's not a question of if, it's when wildfire will occur, and they will occur on the west side as well.
The risks associated with the Chuckanut area for wildfire really have to do with probably ingress and egress of the areas. That's primarily what happens is these communities that are built along hillsides have that natural, risk of wildfire. But the biggest fear, I think, is that ingress and egress. How do we get in and how do they get out? And if there's only one road, then you can have problems. And if that road gets blocked, you could have people that could get stuck up there. And that's the parts where a big planned event would talk about how can we get out? If I'm stuck up in this place, I'm living on the top of the hill, is there another way I can go to get out? Is there a way that we can get in? And understanding all that and preparing for that.
The combination of the steep slopes, the steep southwest facing slopes, and the narrow and steep roads. You've got Chuckanut Drive down below on the slope, as well as the train tracks. So I think all those factors combined, it is a higher risk area. Each community is entirely different, and I think it takes kind of a spark plug within the community to gain the awareness from the community members, and also kind of to combine everybody together. They're required to establish a committee and come up with a Firewise plan that then routes through the Department of Natural Resources and that eventually gets to the National Fire Protection Association.
We're fortunate here in Whatcom County that the Whatcom County Conservation Group has a program in place that actually does support Firewise communities. It's in a cooperative effort with the Department of Natural Resources, but we have local resources here that will help to get those communities up and running, understanding the commitments, come in and educate the communities about that. So those can be done by just contacting the Whatcom County Conservation Center, and they will set that up.
It's a seasonal cleanup. Lots of people do that in the springtime, and they'll clean their roofs off. But if you don't, and your house goes into the fire season and you've got a large accumulation of leaves and debris on the roof, I think that's one, and around the base of the house. So you've got those leaves, branches that have blown there all winter, and if you clean that up in the springtime when the rains, when things become more dry, then you're in good shape. But if you let that go beyond that, then there's folks that pile wood against their house. That's a big red flag. You should have your wood pile out there, even though you have to walk a little further. It should be out at least 30 feet from your house. Fences that connect to the house, if they're wooden, that can really just be again, carry the fire to the house. Those are the main things, and then keeping screens around on vents and then under decks, also where debris is. The specific is to really have that cleared area close to the home, and that can be just the first 3 to 5 feet of minimal flammable vegetation. Out beyond that, then you have fire-resistant vegetation and your larger trees, and again, you break that fuel ladder. But a well-managed landscape can also be Firewise, and it can be beautiful, I think.
I think there should be some worries in the future for fire seasons in Whatcom County. We are seeing a trend that has been occurring the last several years, where we're seeing more earlier fire season starts, and they'll last longer. Those conditions seems to be extending. So I think there should be concerns about our fire seasons for Whatcom County in the future, and the way we prepare for that. Everybody should understand that they're going to be here and we need to deal with them.
A Forest Service study showed that the fire season has actually increased by 78 days since 1970. So I think that's pretty significant.
If people aren't careful with fire, with fireworks or cigarettes or other ignition sources, it can be really problematic on the landscape. Here in the Chuckanut Mountains, the topography is so steep, and the fuels they're in direct alignment, with the wind, and they have a southwestern exposure, and so the fuels on this slope dry out more so than on a north-facing slope. If you only had 10 or 20 minutes to pack up your most prized possessions, what would you grab?